Okay, this is the tutorial on the new rigging script that's part of the shelves. You'll find it up here with this icon of the green locators. If you click it, the UI will come up. As of this tutorial, the version was 7. You may have an increased version and the interface might be a bit changed, but the basic premise will remain the same. The first thing to do is to always have and make sure that you've got your mesh loaded up. We're going to be taking in something that a previous class has done, and make sure that it's sized appropriately. This is our character, basic biped. If you're unsure of whether or not the character is sized appropriately, of course you can use the 1 meter cube. Click that on and off and make sure that it comes in and goes out. In your outliner, you should only have one thing currently in it, which is one polygon object. You shouldn't have several. You shouldn't have several groups. Having groups and having history on will really mess with rigging. So make sure that before you begin, you come up here as a nice fail-safe and delete all by type history. And another thing to do at this point is to go up here and optimize scene size and make sure that everything is nice and optimized. So you should only have in the outliner, and make sure that you open up and look in the outliner, only one mesh in here. Don't rely on what you see in the interface, because you could have a lot of empty nodes that will wreak havoc on you later. So the way I like to rig is I like to come up first and make sure that this does not get in our way when we start to move locators around. So go over here to the layers and create empty layer, then double click on the name and give it a name like geometry or something. At that point, you've created a little layer that you can then select either through the outliner or on screen your mesh, right click on the name and drop down to add selected objects. And what you've done is you've essentially put this into like a Photoshop layer, and whatever you do this layer will affect only this mesh, which is good because when the first part of the rig is that we have to move around locators into the appropriate places, and if you're constantly clicking on this character and having him pop up first, it's going to drive you nuts. So we put him in this layer, and then we're going to go to the layer and actually put and click in this box here next to the visibility. If you click on the V, by the way, he goes away. The visibility is on and off. It doesn't mean the character actually disappears from your scene. It just means you can't see it. So over one space from the visibility toggle is a reference template toggle. If you click once, you get a T, and that means template. It does not allow the character to be shaded. A little bit irritating. The next one is even better, where you press R and it's reference, and you are completely unable to select a reference, but the character shows up shaded. The other thing to do is go over here in shading, drop down to X-ray. This will allow you to look through the character even though they're partially shaded. And the last thing I recommend that you do is click on wireframe on shaded. This will let you see the actual construct of your character as you're rigging. So if you want the character to just pop in and out of template and reference status, then do that with the layer sets first. So let's go into an orthographic view. You've got a good orthographic view from front, and you can grab the character. Make sure that everything here says rotation 0, translation 0, scale 1. Let's scale this character down. Kind of huge. If you were to scale them down like that, they're going to look fine, but you need to make sure that you are at 0 or 111 for scaling. How you do that is you go up here to modify, freeze transformations, translate, rotate, and scale is all on. Freeze transform. This pops into 1. Now you're set. You can start rigging this character. By the way, what you need is, of course, the classic T pose. The character's arms have to be straight out at his or her or its side. The rigging script cannot accommodate diagonals for the arms, or if the arms were built down at the sides, you can't have that. You've got to always model your characters out in the Vitruvian Man T pose. So we've got one mesh that has no history, absolutely no history on it. It's frozen in the proper place. It's in a T pose, and very important, the pivot point is right down here at the bottom. It's not too important, but it's just overall cleanliness to keep your characters like that. In case you need to scale them up and down, they stay on the floor. If they have the pivot point here in the hips, the legs are going to go up and the head's going to go down. You're going to be constantly translating the character down. It's kind of a pain. Okay, so time to start rigging. Click on this button and you'll get the Sky Rigger. And it's very important, do not close this box while you are building this rig. it will not remember what step you're at. So if you close the box, you unfortunately, let's say you've created the boxes, then you get rid of this. Oh, I forgot to do it, let me come back. Well, you're kind of at square zero. And you need to go into the outliner and get rid of everything it's already built. Make sure that you just have your mesh. It's a good idea at this point to optimize the scene size. You know, always have your outliner up when you're going to rig. People think they know what's on the screen because they can see it. No, no, no. A lot of times there's extra geometry and all kinds of garbage in there that will screw them up later. So bring in the SkyRizier, create the boxes. Please do not scale using this control. Scale using this control. This will scale the boxes up to whatever size you need them. And that's about right for our character right there. So first thing you might notice is that this character has got tiny shoulders, and that's fine. Be very careful about where you put your shoulder bones. A lot of people put the shoulder bones up here on the top or in the middle of the body. You want to get kind of a good eye for it and do it as just like it's done in nature, where the bone is a little bit close to the surface. But you know, don't bring it all the way to the top, because just think that's the fulcrum against which this entire geometry is going to swing, and it's going to really bunch up down here. So try to always put it somewhat inside the body. These are named appropriate to whatever you're currently moving, so you'll know that this is the left shoulder, this is sort of the beginning of the arm, bicep here, this is the elbow, etc. Left wrist. Now, one of the cool things about the rigging script right off the bat is that you don't need to do both sides. You just do one side, and then you click this mirror, and this section of the arm will mirror this one. Watch when I click. Boom, like that. Perfect. Same applies also towards any rigging that we're going to be doing towards the feet. We'll be pulling the hips down like that, and the knee, the thigh up like that. The knee comes up right about there, and the toes kind of come up to about there. Okay, now I press mirror, and boom, this other leg right there matches it. And of course the head. You need to make sure that this goes down here. It's the neck and the head, and there's the top of the head. Wonderful. So from the side is something else we got to work out now. A lot of people miss this step, and it's crucial. You need to make sure that it works from every angle. You see I've only grabbed one knee there, but that's okay because I can use the mirror function. Once I'm done moving everything, boom, snap the other one over. Let's see what this is. That's an elbow. That'll work. That works fine for the elbow. And the head, I actually want to move this a little more into the head proper. You know, the spinal cord actually kind of goes forward and has a curve. It's not straight like this, so if you want to get some realism in your character, you can kind of move those around. For the purposes of what I need, this is fine. So this is a very fast rigging we've got for this character, and it's taken us moments to set up. Mere moments to set up. Top view, we can see that the feet are a little skewed out. But you know, it's preferable to model this straight on. I'm going to make a small concession here because we have to. But overall, it's better to have straight arms and straight toes, everything kind of pointing straight out, and that'll work fine. Okay. The other thing to notice on this character is he's got 4 fingers, okay, and a thumb. However, if you do not need to animate those in your game, and make sure that you ask whether or not you need to do this, it's better if you don't. You do not have to create 4 fingers and a thumb finger. If all you can do is just have one basic bone in there because it's a fist and it's a punching game and they're never going to stop doing a fist. In this case, we actually do have a full hand, so now I'm going to create the rig. Now, it's going to give me an error. Why? Because I need to enter a one-word character name up here. So I'm going to be naming this one Dude. Okay, now it's created the rig. Second step immediately afterwards, create the orient constraint. It's done that. And create the FK-IK switching. Boom, now we're done. This should pretty much approximate the character that you've built, and you've got your world, constraint, and you've got your FK, IK constraints, so that when you move this down and you shuffle this back and forth, it'll appropriately match. I will be teaching you how to animate this in class. I don't want to include it in the tutorial, but I did want to give you a head start on the rigging aspect. So if you want to quickly see what we've done here, select this mesh, and then select that, and then come up here to skin. By the way, this is the skeleton. I just want to make sure that I grabbed first the mesh, and then using the control key I hold it down and I select Dude Skeleton secondly. Then I come up here to the skin, I go to Bind Skin, go to Smooth Bind, make sure I go to the options, and I want to make sure that I've got Joint Hierarchy chosen, meaning it's going to do it's going to part out this mesh to the entire skeleton. If you don't have that selected, Object Joint Hierarchy, it's just going to do it to the top node. This could be very frustrating. Maximum influences, I like to keep them to 2, and closest in hierarchy is fine. So, oops, going to complain because I don't have one joint selected. Let's try this. 1, 1, 2. Let's go to Object Hierarchy. There we go. And the reason I did that is because our skeleton actually has a joint at the top here, or a grouping at the top. It's not a proper bone. It's the way Ogre likes it. So now I'm going to move this constraint out, and then boom, get the hand going. And that's kind of crazy there. And you're going to see the shoulder moving and all kinds of nutty stuff because the weighting hasn't been done correctly. But you can already start going in and animate this character as you see fit. You know, he's going to respond to any of the rotations that you do. So that's pretty nice. The head looks a little wonky. You want to make sure that where it's bound is exactly where you assigned it to before you bind it. Sometimes the skeleton rig can pop forward a bit, so check that before you bind it. And let's see. Oh yes, these yellow squares and whatnot, if you so desire, and you know, if you've got extra time on your hands, you can actually go in on the control vertexes for these things and select them one by one, and then start pulling and pushing them until they look more like the structure that you want them to. If you don't like these little kind of square things, you can actually go in there on control vertexes and select that, and then scale them outward. So you can start seeing it outside the character. You know, these little boxes. So if you are animating with reference visibility here on, and you've got the texture, you have a better chance of actually selecting the constraints. You don't have to, you know, you don't have the other ones are hidden inside the body pretty well. These are on. This is obvious on the outside of the body. So if you want to, you can grab all the control vertexes one by one and scale them until they're outside the body. That's something people can do as an option. Anyway, that's the rigging script. Come see me if you have any questions. Otherwise, enjoy.